Well, hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and believe it or not, it's been like 2 weeks since I've watched episode 5 of To Be Hero X, and I feel like I left off on a good point before I started traveling, and then getting sick, and then getting better, and then traveling again, and then coming back to record this, as my dog, of course, is wanting me to throw this toy while I talk to you. But yeah, so we last left off meeting Yang Cheng, who is a pretty interesting character, to say the least. There are some comments that y'all have left that I want to talk about with his character. But yeah, so he had been impersonating Isol, the hero, for a few years, went to an impersonation contest for the 30th anniversary, didn't make the cut, but then, due to various circumstances, saved a little boy named Pomelo, who gained trust within that he was Isol, saved him, and now this very rich Harry Osborn looking guy looks like he's gonna out him as Isol and do something with him. So we're just going to have to see about that. But I wanted to talk about y'all's comments that you had for the last couple episodes before we dive into this week. Linus Peterson for episode 3 said, "One thing I wanted to point out to spare the confusion is that it was subtitled correctly Mr. Shang in episode 3, but Mr. Shand in the previous episodes. It's in Chinese, it's Shang, but it's usually pronounced as Shand in a lot of the subtitles. So it's supposed to be Mr. Shang. Good to know. It's supposed to be Mr. Shang, but they keep saying Shand, so that's good to know. They also point out in episode 4 that Miss J has never been called Jessica. I don't know where I've gotten Jessica from. It might be because I'm watching Trigun Stargaze around the same time as this series on my channel, and there's a character in there called Jessica, so maybe that's where I'm getting it mixed up. Maybe things are crossing over, but I apologize for calling her Jessica. I'll just try to stick to Miss J. But she just looks like a Jessica. What can we do? Con Clasher 3 for episode 4 says, adding to the body horror aspect, where heroes lose agency over their bodies and actions, we know it's not just their fans that influence their very existence. So much of their image, character, and personality are dictated by the management and what they want, i.e. in episode 3, using the live stream show Nice lifting up the statue to promote his strength, and essentially episodes 1 and 2 where the agency dragged Lin Ling around to create the media situations so they could create the character Nice itself. Yeah, that makes me a little bit worried, not only for Lin Ling as the commoner to pick the right agency to go with, because that could influence things depending on who you are, but also this whole idea of Yang Cheng, if he gets to be, an understudy. My theory is he's going to be like an understudy for Isol, and that Isol is going to retire and Yang Cheng is going to take his place. That's my theory. But even then, like, who's to say that Sheng Chao, who is the Harry Osborn guy, who's to say that he's not going to try to influence how Isol is based on the person? So I don't know. That's going to be interesting indeed. Then these next couple of comments are about Isol and the trust value system, so I wanted to talk about them. For episode 5, Unikimi 8 says, another episode on how perception works in this society system. It's little Pomelo who definitely paved the way to Yang Cheng's character becoming Isol, the hero, instead of the performer. He strongly believed in his heart that Yang Cheng was Isol, and the trust value went into himself instead of the OG Isol, which is insane. Yeah, again, the idea that someone's trust value can make another person a hero. I mean, we've seen it with Nice. We've seen how it went from the guy playing Nice originally to Lin Ling, so it's just furthering that is a possibility to happen. Grace, for episode 5, says, there's one thing about watching it dubbed. I don't think they distorted the voice of the one who ordered the kidnapping. Maybe I just have very good hearing, but I think I recognize the voice. I'm just one episode ahead, so I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I don't want to be spoiled on anything, so just FYI, y'all, it'll be noted, and the mods know that too, so they'll point it out. But yeah, it is interesting to note, so I'm glad that Grace points out that in the dub, it's a little bit different. I've noticed that in other series that sometimes there was another show I was watching that had a altered voice, and in the dub it wasn't altered, and I was like, that's weird. So again, just different choices made, but that's really interesting. And then Alexander Q and Truck's comments kind of go hand in hand. Alexander Q says, it's interesting to me that Yang Cheng didn't even have one person who trusted him, not even his uncle. But when he got that one person to do it, he got such a boost in strength. I wonder if the type of trust that people have in you matters for you to become a hero. Because Lin Ling had people's trust before he became nice or the commoner, but he wasn't doing anything special before that. Not until people wanted him to defeat God's Eye did he become a hero as Lin Ling. And now with Yang Cheng, he has that sort of lightning in him from Pomelo trusting him as Isol. It's a very interesting system. Yeah, the world building is fascinating and curious because we don't really know what that world building is going to be like, because we only get what we've seen so far in the first 5 episodes. So I'm very curious to see what they'll do with that moving forward. But yeah, the thing is, Lin Ling did have some trust value, but not enough to really do anything as nice. So that's a good point. But then Truck adds on to that and says, I can't even imagine what it would feel like to know that no one trusts you, and having physical proof of that. It's not just an insecurity, it's a fact. So for him to feel extra scared to ask Jia Qing out, it must feel really self-conscious next to some overachieving man. It's frustrating, but I would be the same if I were in his shoes. Yeah, that's such a good point to bring out. I do want to gently shake Yang Cheng so much. But in the same vein, the fact that you have a physical note that no one trusts you is that's pretty terrifying, because you can't just guess. You know, it's wild. And then Truck said, I'm way too BL-brained, because when Sheng Cho came out, I was I'm here for you, Yang Cheng. My gaydar went off. But Yang Cheng likes Jia Jing, who seems to like him back. So, oh well, this is why Yang Cheng has 2 arms. Look, I definitely am wondering if Sheng Chao does like Yang Cheng, but Yang Cheng definitely likes the girl. So is this going to be a doomed, unrequited ship? Would this series and this creator possibly do that? Why? Maybe. So anyway, I'm very curious to see what we get this episode. It has been a long time coming. I have literally waited 2 weeks to watch this episode with you all. Even though you all don't know that. It doesn't feel like that long, I'm sure. But I have been just waiting to be able to read the comments, waiting to catch up to them, waiting to feel better, and then to get in. The only thing I have is I have a little teensy bit of a cough left from when I had the flu. So if I cough or something, it's just I'm not sick, it's just lingering, so I apologize for that. But yeah, anyway, I've talked for nearly 8 minutes. We need to get started. Thank you all so much for watching with me, but I'm so excited. So we are gonna get down to brass tacks and watch episode 6 of To Be Hero X, and we are gonna get this shindig started here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it. It's gonna start getting to the point where it's just like Game of Thrones around here. I mean, I'm just gonna start expecting that every episode, someone's gonna die. And it's gonna be like one of the main characters, and we're just gonna go from there. So, Sheng Chao is dead. Well, that put a damper in some theories that I had, but wow, what an episode. Whiteboard Coon is here to help out because we need to talk about some things. And break some stuff down. There were some really interesting concepts in here, but I am going to be real honest with you all. I am a little worried because this series has established a trend within the first 6 episodes where it's like Moon is dead, Sheng Chao is dead, heroes are dying, it was like Nice, Moon, Sheng Chao, Wreck, all these characters are dying, just dropping like flies, and look, I find it compelling, but I am starting to worry a little bit that it's gonna wear out its welcome, and I'm gonna start clocking that characters are gonna die, and the shock value is gonna go away, and it's gonna be like, well, that character's gonna die. Oh no, they died. But who knows? Do I think that what's-her-face, Zhao, the girl that he likes, is gonna die? Probably. She's probably gonna die too. So, who knows? But yeah, this series is just killing people off left and right. It's like, it's sort of a double-edged sword because you want to create this atmosphere that feels very much like Game of Thrones, where it's like no one is safe everyone could die at a given moment. But at the same time, there needs to be, you want to find ways to make it where it's still shocking. And that's a very delicate balance to ride. So we'll see if it holds out. But I was surprised that, the moment he put the helmet on, though, and the guy got off the bike, I'm like, oh, he's going to shoot him. I just didn't expect that he was going to get shot in the head. I thought he was going to get shot in the chest. But the fact that it went through the helmet feels very... I guess they wanted to make sure he didn't live. And I was like, oh, well, that's a way to do it. So, okay. Interesting. I want to talk about this episode. So we need to probably go ahead and start it here and get this all started here. And I apologize for my cough, but we're going to get this going over here and have Whiteboard Coon here in 3, 2, 1. So we get Pomelo checked out of the hospital. I like that they went and got that taken care of before Yang Cheng went to go get himself taken care of. And she's like, well, this is all thanks to you. So why did they kidnap Pomelo? This was an interesting episode because my theories were, I had this theory that Shang Chow, who I feel like they spelled his name differently in the subtitles for episode 5. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I've been wrong with Jessica, so it's very likely. But Shang Chow, my theory was that he wanted to have Yang Cheng become Isol. He wanted him to become Isol. He was on that committee trying to find the impersonator or the closest impersonator to be at the event. But Shang Chow has established himself as kind of this entrepreneurial guy who has a family with wealth, again, having their own super layer, backing him up. So he wanted Yang Cheng to become Isol. Also because I think from Shang Chow, I don't want to say that Shang Chow was trying to manipulate Yang Cheng, but I kind of think he was. Because he knows Yang Cheng personally. He also knows Yang Cheng is kind of spineless. And we've talked about his social anxiety and everything, but he is kind of spineless in that respect. He's spineless socially. He has a really good heart. He wants to protect people, and he is a hero. There's no denying that. But when it comes to social avenues and him standing up for himself and having self-esteem and self-confidence when he's not Isol, he doesn't really have that. And I think that Shang Chow, I think there was some manipulation there because I think he wanted to have Yang Cheng become Isol and he wanted to be the manager. Now, the big question is when we talk about Liu Zhao, which is the girl, he asked her out. We joke about him having a crush on Yang Cheng, but I'm kind of like, was he asking her out because he genuinely liked her? If he did, I would believe that because he was around her a lot. He kept striking up conversation with her, kept being around her. Did he genuinely like her, or was he keeping her around to keep Yang Cheng around because he knew that Yang Cheng liked her as well? So there's a lot of what-if questions with that now we're not going to get the answer to because he's dead. But I thought it was really coincidental that he made the assumption, we'll put that on here, he made the assumption that someone knew about Pomelo and trying to have him as a hostage because he knew that their family would be out of town. There was little tiny coincidences that I was like, that's really convenient that you knew that. So for a while, I thought that Shang set this whole thing up, that he set up the kid getting kidnapped and everything, and that was what happened. And you may be saying, well, but he went and got the Enlighter to point it out. I'm like, true. They kind of hint at the fact that it was Isol's group that did the kidnapping, but then it's Isol's group trying to set up Yang Cheng with the guys that they hired themselves. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down a little bit when we get a little further into this, but there's a little interesting cat and mouse. And now that Shang Chow is dead, the one person we really need to answer questions is no longer in the picture. So the death, as shocking as it was, now the death is even more frustrating because answers to these questions are not going to be able to be gotten. We're going to have to depend on Isol's crew, and they've shown themselves as not wanting to play fair. So it's what do we do with it, And she's like, I don't know either. And he says for money, they resorted to this to support their livelihood, apparently. And he's like, and she's like, well, our family isn't rich. And he's like, maybe they knew your parents work out of town and that's what made you a good target. That's the line that got me, because how would they have known that her parents worked out of town? And it's awfully convenient, because who would have known such information? Well, he would have. He would have known about the parents and that situation. So that was like red flag number one, being like, okay, well, he kind of knows about her family status. So, and he has a lot of resources, and he has money, and his dad has a company hookup. So a lot of the red flags are pointing towards Sheng Chao, which makes the murder kind of throw everything off. Maybe they weren't looking for a big payout. So anyway, Yang Cheng is like still getting used to like absorbing Isol, and Shang brings up the concept that it might be a symptom of him going viral. I kind of like the idea that he's gaining power by going viral. In Nice's case, it was him getting more perfect and him having his OCD flare up. But in Isol's case, it's like he gets more electric the more like viral that he gets. So yeah. Now, this also as well, like this setting up him getting filmed doing this. That was the other thing that felt like not only did he know the parents, but conveniently in the alleyway, the fight was filmed. The fight was filmed, and he just happened to be like pull it up and everything as it's going viral. Now look, to Sheng Chao's credit, there were people around when this all went down. I think, if we go back to the last episode, I think there were people around. So it's like, you could say that there were people already there filming and it just happened to work out that way and they filmed him without his mask on. I feel like it's all been set up, and Sheng Chao being the orchestrator of that makes so much sense. But now he's dead, so it's like we can't know for sure unless it comes out later on that Isol's crew is like, we didn't have anything to do with this. Then it's like, anyway, we're going to talk about it. So, heroically fighting to save the victim. And they finally saw his face, and it's gotten over 1 million likes. Yeah. So, what's interesting about this to me is that the population at large knows that Yang Cheng is not the OG Isol. They know that. They are very well aware of that. They know he's a child actor from a theater, and they have chosen to accept that he is this other Isol, and they support him instead of the OG Isol. That is such a wild concept, that he's gained this power to be this hero that is essentially the same as another that already exists, and the population's just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go with this guy now. That is crazy, but also believable, because people in this world do that. Like, they're faced, it's a good commentary about how when a population is faced with information that is not necessarily true, like they have in front of them, they're like, oh, this is Isol. We, the audience, know, well, Yang Cheng is not the real Isol, but it's a good commentary on how people can see evidence right in front of them and go, I choose to believe in that, even though it's not correct. It's a great commentary about how we put faith in things regardless of whether they're, real or not. But then they become real because we give them credence. So, yeah. And Sheng Chao is so excited about this because he's like, you're becoming a hero in the hearts of people, because he's wanting to sign him. He wants to sign him and manage him. Like that, this Yang Cheng is his ticket. I feel like Sheng Chao, in working with the Isol group, was probably able to see behind the scenes about maybe how disillusioned Isol was, and maybe about how kind of out of touch their entire management was. And he was kind of like, I can do better, and was taking off from there. Also, Liu Zhao, so obvious she likes him. When she like grabs his wrist to look at the trust value, it's so obvious. It's really obvious. And I do want to kind of like gently shake both of them I don't want to just put all the blame on Yang Cheng, because I kind of did that last episode, and I feel bad, but I'm glad that she finally comes out and says what she needs to say, but I do want to kind of berate her a little bit at the beginning of this, because he's like, it feels like being electrocuted. Well, we'll see about that. So yeah, after this, it's like, the episode is called 2 E-Souls. We have 1 actor, 2 E-Souls. How about that? So he checks his text messaging, and then he's like, is Pamela feeling better? Should I keep chatting with him next week? And like, why are you talking to me from this account? And so, to be fair, Yang Cheng does worry that he's like, does it look like I took advantage of her? Because he doesn't want to do that, which is very gentlemanly of him. Very nice of Yang Cheng to not want to take advantage of her, so that's great. And I like that the communication here is that she's like, I kind of had a feeling this was you from the start. And she says, from the first time I talked about you in the bubble tea shop, I kind of had a feeling that the person playing E-Soul was you. So every time, ever since then, that Pamela went to your performance, I tried to go with him because I wanted to see the other side of you on the stage. I wanted to know, atop the stage or off the stage, which one was the real you. And that's such a crazy question to ask. Like, for her to say, I was trying to figure out if you are the person on the stage or off the stage, is kind of wild, because the answer is, I mean, you would think the answer would naturally be that it's him off stage, because on stage is a performance. But it is kind of essentially him in both scenarios. So I feel like there's a really cool connection to Moon there, where Moon was noticing that Lin Ling was different than the OG Nice and all of that. Also, at this point, it's in the back of my head, and I'm sure next episode we might get some answers. It's in the back of my head, knowing that Yang Cheng just watched Shang Chao get shot in the face, the fact that he shot Moon, allegedly, supposedly, so we think, is kind of crazy. And that was 3 years from when this happened. So what happened in those 3 years to get Yang Cheng to that point? If it was in fact Yang Cheng that shot Moon, we still don't know for sure, because this episode shows us anybody can become E-Soul as long as people believe in them. So hell, next episode, somebody else could become E-Soul. To be honest, somebody else could take Yang Cheng's place. We'll talk about that a little bit further when we talk about Shang Chao with the helmet on. But, so, we don't know exactly if it is Yang Cheng that shot Moon in episode 4. We don't know that for sure yet. It's not concretely been established. Because again, the mask. But if that was Yang Cheng that shot her, and we've seen the trauma he went through by the end of this episode, then that leaves us, the audience, with this big question of what drove him to get to that point where that was okay? And is he going to relate to Lin Ling, who's going to be like, this girl I had a crush on, because it would have been like him killing Liu Zhao. So, I don't know. Unless Nice did something to hurt Liu Zhao and it's payback. I don't know. We don't even know. We don't know yet. But it is in the back of my mind that we've not had that explained, and that it still has some time to go. That's a really cool transition too. You can kind of see Yang Chao's face above the mask there. That's a really cool transition. And he's like, what do I want? 2 signature milk teas, he says. And so the uncle's like, how sweet do you want it? I love the love level is how sweet. And then, of course, there's the chair that promises you're going to hook up with somebody. And then before he can get there, this kid's like, can you shake my hand? And when he does, the kid literally becomes Sonic the Hedgehog. Which is really funny. So instead of, it's like terrible timing. Instead of having this date with Liu Zhao, he ends up, and honestly, the uncle, I was frustrated with the uncle, because it's like, sure, you tied the strings of fate, but like, can you let him hook up with the girl first and then come back and do this another day? No. Instead, he has him like shake the hands of all the kids instead, and in order to like make the money off of them. And then instead, she's already gone and he's lined up to shake the hands. So it doesn't work out. Although it was really cute. What did he say there? It's like, buy 2 milk teas, get 1 handshake, buy 3, get 2. That is so sleazy, old man. These are kids. And he's like, I see you've become too busy to come here since you became popular. I told you a few times to find someone to manage your business. Have you given it thought? And he's like, I can't afford it. And I don't have any big plans anyway. And he's like, I've already picked someone out for you. And it ends up being Sheng Chao. So, again, red flag. The next red flag in all of this is the uncle getting hooked up with Sheng Chao as manager. Like, that just, everything in this episode made it feel so convenient, which we'll talk about the helmet scene at the end. Was Sheng Chao really the target? But yeah, I'm like, it all just felt like red flag after red flag, you know? And to see where to go to from there. And he's like, it's me who asked Rock to suggest working with someone. Like he's orchestrated all of this. He knew about her parents being gone, which is kind of crazy, and being like, I guess that's probably why they kidnapped your brother. And it's like, that's really coincidental. Then the fight just happened to be filmed, you know? And the thing about the filming of the fight is, unless it was just a coincidence and there just happened to be people there that filmed it and it was not Sheng Chao's fault at all, why would Isol's group film it? They wouldn't want to do that because it would take away from Isol. So that's weird. And then him showing up being like, well, I asked your uncle if I could manage you. And it's like, it all felt very coincidental. And maybe Sheng Chao liked him. But then why would he have asked Liu Zhao out, you know? Unless, you know, was he just trying to keep her around so that Yang Cheng wouldn't leave? All these what-if questions, and the man's dead, so we can't be asked by him unless we find some of his information with answers elsewhere. And so he's like, you guys make yourselves at home, make your deals. I do like the idea that what's interesting is they both have kind of primary colors in this episode, where it's like the blue and the yellow, but then Liu Zhao does not have red, which would be the other primary color. She has green, which is a secondary color that is combined by what two colors? Yellow and blue. So there very much is this idea that Liu Zhao is there for both of them. Not just for one man, two Isols, but for two. But for two people. She's just there because she likes both Sheng Chao and she likes Yang Cheng, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So we have this 34th anniversary, and we get a little bit of insight into what Isol's lair looks like and how Isol is. So we have this 34th year anniversary where they're talking about conferences he has to go to. You have this special press conference, and I prepared your speech. I think it's crazy that he keeps the helmet on and doesn't show his face to anyone, not even his manager. Also, Isol is ripped, very ripped, also working out in jeans. These are choices. I thought that the metal hand and stuff was like a glove, kind of like what Yang Cheng had made for himself. But no, he literally lost an arm, is going the Vash route, needs the prosthetic. Also, the fact that he has all the scars and stuff, he definitely gives off Batman vibes. Definitely gives off some Batman vibes. Also makes me think of Logan as Wolverine with all the scars and stuff. But yeah, he's not interested. Man is buff as hell. They're like, we've updated the slogan. So when all this happens, there's 47 days to go. We'll put a little timeline on here. There's 47 days until the conference. So a little under 2 months before. Also, Isol, looking respectfully, sir. Of course, looking respectfully. We changed based on the data users the past 2 years. I get very much the vibe that Isol's kind of over it. And again, we've talked about, by looking at Firm Man and looking at Nice, OG Nice, that the toll of being a hero and being micromanaged and being a corporate entity and the toll that takes on your psyche, it's kind of like, do I think that Isol has sold out by being part of MG's management? No, not necessarily, because I think, you know, being a hero, there's all these factors to it. But I think that maybe by now, 34 years into the business, Isol might feel like a sellout because, again, they bring it up in this episode. They're like, you've not been doing your job as a hero. You've not been saving people. You've not been fighting villains. You've just kind of like done press conferences and been like this figurehead as a hero, but you're not actually doing anything heroic. So it is kind of like selling out. And I think that Isol knows that. He's accepted that because he thinks, I feel like it's funny that he's putting on the shell of an armor when you could argue he's being a shell of himself. You could argue that. But I think that Isol goes along with it because you would ask yourself, you're like, well, why would this hero keep doing this for 34 years if he is burnt out and doesn't feel like he feels like a sellout? Well, because up until Yang Cheng showed up, he probably has thought to himself, I'm still a hero. I probably still inspire people. There's probably still some good that I'm doing. So that outweighs the selling out and all that comes with that, you know? And then he's like, here, I'm going to use this now. And he's like, no need. He's like, well, according to the data. And he's like, we'll just keep the slogan unchanged. But there's another issue you need to pay attention to, the knockoff Isol. So the knockoff Isol, as of 47 days before the celebration, had taken a percentage of his popularity, a percent of his supporters. And he's like, you should make a copyright announcement. And I like that the guy's like, look, legal's already drafting the letters. You just have to sign them. And I don't blame Isol for getting kind of irritated at that because it's like, oh, you asked for my opinion. You told me this kid's taking my supporters and I should do something. But before I can even say anything, you already have legal drafting letters. You've already done stuff without consulting me. So if I were Isol, I would feel like I'm not even being respected. I'm just there. You know, you're just using me, but you're making these decisions without my knowledge. And I don't blame Isol for being kind of frustrated about that. We also see the trust value going from like the 15,000s to the 17,000s, but that also is probably like, okay, so you can see him jump up. Like he's got like 15,000 and Isol is like 2.5 million. That's crazy. That's a crazy jump. But yeah, and so Isol's just like, everyone knows how to discern the real Isol. Ooh! So, is the real Isol a little bit jealous? Perhaps, but he's not, definitely not admitting it, definitely not talking about it, so, So meanwhile, Sheng Chao is like, boy wonder genius, Harry Osborn, is working on his Isol glove, and they decide to give it a go. And then he's like, we're on the right track. As soon as the parts I order arrive, I'll be able to steady the electrical current. And so then he's like, I like that Yang Cheng is like, are you sure we're not committing identity fraud? Are we sure we're not doing anything that's like, you know, unethical? Which he's like, well, in this world, a hero's identity isn't something you can have by just wanting it. It comes from each person that supports, trusts, and loves you. However, Sheng Chao is, I feel like he really is given the general rainbows and sunshine answer to that question because he's like, oh, well, you can't just become Isol by wanting to become Isol. Everybody has to love you and trust you. But if you organize and, you know, manufacture the situation to let that happen, well, I mean, what are we supposed to do? You know, because the Treeman Foundation very much has orchestrated events that have led to that trust being manufactured. And the trust itself is not artificial. It's real. The people really do trust Nice, and they trust Lin Ling as the commoner. They are putting their love and trust into him. But in that same vein, the Treeman Foundation very much manufactured the scenarios to allow that to happen. So, and I don't think for a second that Sheng Chao is too dumb to believe that. I think he knows. He knows they're manufacturing. And even if at the end of the day, he did not orchestrate this all happening, even if Sheng Chao was innocent and he didn't orchestrate anything, he still is smart enough to know that they are taking advantage of that situation that's been created to garner that trust value, to expand on that trust value. He knows exactly what he's doing. And there is no doubt in my mind that there's a little bit of manipulation here. And he's like, the reason so many people are calling you Isol right now is because compared to his mighty status, you've shown people your unlimited potential. I do think that Sheng Chao, I like that Sheng Chao is kind of creating this sort of David and Goliath kind of scenario where he's like, you know, the OG E-Soul is this big monolith, but he hasn't done anything. He's just banking off the celebrity of it all. And that's not necessarily E-Soul's fault. There's all these other factors to it, as we've seen. But he's like, you know, you're the underdog, but you're doing the hard work. You're the one that's actually doing stuff. So why shouldn't we let this happen? He's like, you're the one who saved Pomelo. That too, I know that maybe he was innocent, but I just felt like there's like a little layer of manipulation with what he's saying, even if it's genuine. And then Jia Qing. Oh, Jia Qing, what am I doing with myself? Not Liu Zhao. Jia Qing. Oh my gosh, everybody in the comments is going to be like, you've got her name completely wrong. I'm human, not AI. Leave me alone. So Jia Qing, sorry about that. Whoops. Okay, y'all know who I'm talking about. So they're like, you need to believe in yourself. I do appreciate that Sheng Chao did offer him the advice to believe in himself. Did he not know that Yang Cheng liked Jia Qing? Did he not know that? Did he not know that? Because there's a little part of me that's like, if you knew that he had self-esteem issues and didn't believe in himself, and that's why he didn't ask Jia Qing out, and you asked her out instead, but then you told him to believe in yourself and to believe in himself, but then knowing that, you know that he'd ask her out by doing that, I feel like he didn't know. I feel like that would be very weird advice to give if he didn't know. A whole new E-Soul that's unique to you. Well, Sheng Chao is banking on that so that he can manage it. Because even here, he's like, we're going to go and we're going to go and solve some crime and save some people and cultivate your image. Like he was very much cultivating it and manipulating the situation, right? Now, there's another part of me that thinks from this that Sheng Chao thought that they would just create this triangle, right? We're going to create this triangle where we have Yang Cheng up here as the new E-Soul, and he's going to be the hero. And then Sheng Chao was like, I'm going to be the one to manage him. And in the process of managing him, because Yang Cheng is going to be too busy being E-Soul, why, I'll just you slink right over here and have Jia Qing as my girlfriend. And we'll just have a little triangle all together. It'll work out great. So maybe he didn't know that Yang Cheng liked her. Maybe he had no idea. Maybe he did not know. But I also do think that there is a part of me that I want to sympathize with the OG E-Soul, because from Firm Man's point of view, we've seen how Firm Man was really influenced by the management, influenced by the narrative that was thrust upon him, and so he could only act kind of according to that narrative. That being said, I do think that it's interesting because the audience influences who E-Soul is. So if they wanted him to go find more villains, why wasn't that being told to him? But then it gets brought up when Yang Cheng comes in as E-Soul. So there's some interesting world building and like what fans are complacent with, what they expect out of heroes. There's a discussion with that that's interesting. But yeah, so Sheng Chao connects it all on film that he saves, this person saves this person's car as it was getting broken into. Young man in E-Soul attire arrests burglars. The new E-Soul emerges, trending on media platforms. I think it's also interesting to note that even though he had 1 million views and was getting more and more followers, it was still like a drop in the bucket compared to what the OG E-Soul had. I thought that was interesting too. They're loving the decades-old E-Soul look this young man is sporting. Yeah, because that was one thing. Yang Cheng kind of went with a more retro look, which, is kind of paying homage to the OG E-Soul, and the fans enjoy that. But yeah, so then we get like all these different things where they're like taking photos with him. E-Soul's right next to me. So then we're at 31 days. We cut to 31 days. until the anniversary, the 34th. So we got a month to go. And that's when the guy's like, I'm going to show my family this vlog 100 times. And he's like, well, our audience base is very steady. The knockoff ESOL's just fake news. So trying to avoid the inevitable. And then the one guy, and he's the guy that was at the children's theater watching the performance and who had scouted him to begin with. And he's like, electro energy drinks are canceling their partnership. That young people right now like the new ESOL more. Yeah, I thought that was interesting because what they say here, what they say there, like rip off, fraud, cheap. And then I didn't know, it looks like there's a couple, okay, so there are a couple people in the stands watching the old ESOL's presentation. There are a couple people still there. I thought in their reaction that it was empty, but there are people sitting there. But yeah, he's like, welcome to the special edition toy press conference. So here we go. Talking about corporations and corporate greed, let's dive into that now, because we have this concept where you have Yang Cheng, and what's he doing? He's doing a fan meet and greet, a fan meeting, and everyone gets a gift and a balloon. You not only get to shake his hand, you get a gift and a balloon. And that's just so interesting, isn't it? Because everybody has like the little hairstyles and everything. And it's super cute. And they're like, no need to rush. He's a young man. I like all the cougar moms are like, what a fine young man. It's like, back off, ladies. He's not even able to drink yet. But it's super cute. I do like when they call him refreshing. Because yeah, if you had a hero that came out just for press conferences and toy releases, but had become disconnected from the fans, yeah, this guy would seem amazingly refreshing because he's right there in the flesh in front of you. Of course it would seem that way, right? He's full of sunshine. It's no wonder everyone likes him. Here's the crazy part. The original ESOL was probably just like Yang Cheng. He was probably just like him, full of sunshine, full of energy. But that society that's been cultivated by the commission is slowly draining all of these heroes of that very energy. And it's this toxic. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Substance. I don't know if you've seen The Substance, but I was getting Substance vibes from this episode because it's like the system, which in this series is the Hero Commission, the system uses you and uses you and uses you until you're drained of everything you've got, and then they latch on to this new youthful version of yourself that they're like, oh, well, now it's like throw away the old toy, now let's play with the new toy, and it just becomes this cycle. I'm honestly amazed that once ESOL's popularity started going down, I'm honestly amazed that the MG management team didn't be like, well, let's just ditch this guy and go after the new one. I'm surprised that didn't happen. Now, if the MG management team is, in fact, as we suspect, responsible for, or as we think, we're going to talk about that, is responsible for taking out Shang Chao and they were attempting to kill ESOL, then they were just a corrupt corporation and kind of got what was coming to them, because this is only going to make Yang Cheng probably more popular in the long run. But I'm surprised. If this were the Treeman Foundation, Miss J would be like, hey, ESOL, if you want to retire, you can do that. This guy can take your place. She probably would say that. And her boss would probably be all about it. Now, isn't Mr. Shang her boss? Or Mr. Shang... No, Mr. Shang is in charge of all the Hero Commission, right? He's the president of the whole commission. I think that's correct. Yeah. But I like this office where you can see the ESOL posters and the figurines. So this guy here, he's like, he's a fan. And he's like, the toy is too expensive. Even for old fans, this would be too much. And she's like, no, spending money on the junk, we have to save it for our kids. So... that's the thing, too, that I want to talk about as well, is that, here, Yang Cheng is meeting with young fans and kids, and it's all like they don't even pay anything. They just show up and get a balloon and a gift and a handshake and all of that. Meanwhile, with ESOL, now it's the point of selling these toys and collectibles, and they're very expensive. But there's a really cool angle to this, because here, this fan here on the screen, he was probably, considering that Esol is 34 years old, this guy who looks like Harry Potter, it's like Ginny and Harry Potter right here on the screen for us, he was probably a fan of Esol when he was a kid and was getting the toys when he was a kid and was a huge fan. But as Esol has aged, so has his fan base. And now it's like the fan base have all these other responsibilities, like they have kids, they have families, they have jobs, they have other obligations. Maybe they have the money to buy the toys, but at the same time, they also probably need that money for other things, like she says, like their children. So now you're looking at this crazy cycle where your fan base is aged up with you, so their money and resources are going to be used in different ways, whereas Yang Cheng is right back at the beginning where Esol probably was at one point. And what would we do with that? I'm going to be curious to see how much of a difference 3 years makes, because after this, at some point, here's the crazy thing. The Esol that was with Magic Shadow was Yang Cheng, who ran into Firm Man, and Magic Shadow literally blew up. So at some point, we know that Yang Cheng is going to go to management that will have Magic Shadow involved. So is he going to end up going to MG? Is he going to end up going to MG? I don't know. We're going to find out next episode. But he's going to get to the point where he's kind of doing the same thing that Nice was doing. And poor Magic Shadow, too, who ends up dying in the most horrific way. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, meanwhile, do you know what your greatest over is against the old Esol? And he's like, is it being popular with kids? And he's like, I mean, it's honestly because he's not sold out. That's his biggest advantage. He's not sold out, and he's not tied to corporate greed like the old Esol is. Because now it's just about a bundle and promotion, whereas this kid, like, instead, the new Esol is much more like grassroots, you know? Let us welcome Esol himself to announce the product. Which, you know, the thing is, we can't tell Esol's reactions to any of this. Like when the guy was arranging all the stuff with him in his room, in his training room and everything, Esol seemed kind of over it and he didn't want to talk about it, and you could tell he was frustrated. But what's so fascinating is we can't see his facial reactions. We have no clue how Esol really, really, really feels about all this going down. And that's so interesting, because I would love to see what he actually thinks and to hear what he actually thinks. But instead, it's like he's this puppet of management, just being like, yeah, the special edition's got, 1,000 units. And then this guy stands up in the crowd saying, aside from promotional work, do you plan on fighting any villains? Are you actually going to get back in the game and do something? And they're like, your ranking's been dropping recently. Have you got any comments about that? What do you think of the new Esol? Are you worried about being replaced by him? Yeah, and everybody asks for responses. And I love that transition! I love that everybody's asking him all these questions, and then you see Yang Cheng raise his hand too, but it's for being him as being Esol and doing like the ability and everything. Such a good transition. And they're like, being popular with kids is just the surface. The real advantage is that they can see him. Because they're like, please respond, and he won't answer any questions. The real power he has is that even after you take off your mask, you're still Esol. That is crazy. That's what we talked about with Lin Ling, with him being the commoner, is that Esol is kind of like Nice. Esol and Nice both have these appearances, but you can't tell beneath this mask of, with Esol, it's a literal mask. You can't see his features. It's opaque. You can't see it. With Nice, the mask is forced by the image that's been created around his hero like image from the fans. So even if he's sad, you wouldn't be able to tell. When he jumps off the building to his death, he looked no different than he did any other day of the week, because that's how his hero had been crafted. So there's this cool kind of distinction where you have Nice and Isol, the two OGs. They were so crafted to be a certain way that they could not show who they really were. And there was a sense that there was a lack of genuine authenticity with them. Whereas with Lin Ling as the commoner is Lin Ling. Lin Ling is the commoner. They are one and the same, for better or worse. There's no persona, it's just him. Now, will that change? We'll see. But with Yang Cheng as Isol, it's just him in a costume being Isol, but at the end of the day, it's Yang Cheng, which is so fascinating to see that comparison between Lin Ling and Yang Cheng. That comparison's interesting. Love that. But you could tell, like, I maintain that there is such a risk with that. There is such a risk, because if you have any sort of privacy, you need to latch onto it. You need to hold on to it. I am private in my personal life. I try to be as private as I can be. I admire people like Todd in the Shadows on YouTube because he doesn't show his face. I appreciate people that I appreciate VTubers that have their own like avatars. I appreciate people that use pen names that are private, because that's all you have. You have to distinguish that persona from who you are, because in this case with them, it's like that becomes like, if you are Yang Cheng all the time and the audience knows you as Yang Cheng, then even when you're not Isol, they associate you as one and the same. So if they hate Yang Cheng, they're going to hate Isol and vice versa. Same with Lin Ling as the commoner. You don't have that shield of a persona to hide behind, because people are going to just know you as this one entity, right? It's kind of like, I'm going to use an influencer that gets a lot of flack. It's like Michaela Noguera. She's like a makeup influencer. She gets a lot of flack because she has an exaggerated accent, among other things. But she's tried to make herself be this persona, but then she says the persona is actually her. And what's problematic about that as a, internet influencer, whatever, is that if you try to say that the persona is genuinely you, if people don't like the persona, you can't separate that from yourself. You've already made that yourself. So if they don't like the persona, they're not going to like you. So in Yang Cheng's case and Lin Ling's case, if they don't like Isol and the commoner, they know that you are still them, even beside the name. They're not going to like you either. So it brings up a lot of hosts of what if bad things could happen, but we've not explored those yet in the series, so we'll see what goes down with that. But yeah, so the marketing guy, Mr. Pink, I'm going to call him Mr. Pink, he's not happy with the fact that Yang Cheng is catching up to Isol. And he surpassed 500,000. That's crazy. The new Isol trust value is approaching old Isol. What's kind of crazy about that is not really, because yeah, he's gone up to 500,000, which is incredible and a lot at once. Because he started out like a month prior at 17,000, and now he's up to 500,000. That's insane. But old Isol was like at 2.5 million, so it was still like 3 times as much. But I mean, still catching up pretty quickly. So yeah, and this is the part where I got a little worried, because Yang Cheng is really getting kind of like, he's starting to, and I understand that feeling. When you start to get a little bit of popularity, it can go to your head very quickly, and it's hard to stay humble. And honestly, I feel like Jia Qing is the only thing really keeping that humbleness in check, because she as soon as he starts to get a little cocky and maybe even a smidgen, a teensy bit of self-centered around the point value that he's gaining, and you can't blame him for being that way. I'm not saying that's you can't blame him for being that way, because he went from zero, having nothing, and he has trauma from that, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. He has trauma from that, so you can understand why he would let it go to his head that he's getting all of these point values, because he's never had it before. And the devil temptation. The devil is busy, y'all. And it's so easy to fall into that temptation. It really is. But I think that Yang Cheng is really the only one keeping him kind of grounded away from that, because she is instantly there to remind him of his lack of self-esteem because he can't ask her out. So it kind of grounds him a little bit because she's like, don't get carried away. I'm glad she's there to anchor him. And he's like, I just wanted to take a look and come across it. So, okay. She says that Sheng Chao asked her out. Did he actually ask her out? That's the question. Did he actually ask her out, or did she make that up? You would think on the surface she would have no reason to make that up, because why would she? But here's the thing. I got a little frustrated with her this episode, and I understand where she's coming from too, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I do agree with her that I don't think that because someone likes you, that should be justification for you to like them back. I don't believe in that at all. And I see it happen in anime. I know this is a donghua, so it's a little different. But I see it happen in anime a lot where a character's like, well, I love them. And I see it happen in Western media too. So it's not an anime, donghua exclusive thing. I don't like the storytelling trope of because this character likes someone, it is expected for them to like them back. Because that's not how real life works. And to me, as someone that's been in situations where there has been non-consensual violence against that person, in that situation, it is not fair to expect, nor should anyone be expected to be forced into consensual agreements when they don't feel that way. Right? So, on the one hand, he likes her, but he won't stand up and do anything about it. And we talked last week about why that is, and it makes sense. It really does. But I feel for her in one perspective because I feel like she's like, look, if you like me, say something, but I agree, she should not have to wait on Yang Cheng. That is not, if he can't get the gall and the courage to stand up and tell her that he likes her and to accept whether she's going to accept that love and return it or reject it, then that's on him. She should not be expected to sit around and wait forever until he says something when someone else right in front of her, who she probably likes, is asking her out as well. She's literally giving him every opportunity. She's like, hey, this guy asked me out. I didn't say yes or no yet, but I'm going to soon. If this other person, if anybody else that likes me out there, can't imagine who it is, isn't honest and has courage to tell me, I'm not going to sit around and wait forever. And I appreciate that from a standpoint of her being like, if you like me, say so. I'm not going to wait around forever, because to me, if I were in her shoes, I wouldn't want to be manipulated or played. I'm very much like, either say that you like me or say that you don't. I'll be sad, but I would rather you tell me outright than lead me on. Because I've been led on in relationships before, and it's not fun. And it's like, and the thing is, if he doesn't have from her perspective, if he doesn't have the courage to tell her that he likes her, then if I were in her shoes, I'd be like, okay, but if you don't have the courage to tell me that you like me, then how is this relationship going to work? And is it really going to pan out over time? Because if you really liked me, you would say something, right? So on the one hand, I get all that. Get all that and why she's doing this. And I don't blame her at all. I think it's smart that she's like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to wait around forever for you to just lead me on without having the courage to say it. Because do you really love me if you don't have the courage to say it? Let's be real. On the other hand, though, to play devil's advocate, to play Isol's advocate, on the other hand, I do think that if she really likes him back, there is a part of me that's like, you need to say something too. Like, on the other hand, I could see the argument someone would have where it's like, but she's playing a game where she's stringing him along being like, well, he asked me out and I don't know. I guess because then I feel bad for Sheng Chao. Because then I'm like, girl, if you don't actually like Sheng Chao, you need to just, if you like Yang Cheng, tell him right now, be like, hey, I like you. Do you like me back? Because if not, I'm going to move on. Like, I do think that it's fair to say that she needs to also not lead Yang Cheng on to making decisions. She needs to be honest as well, because it kind of feels like I felt bad for Sheng Chao in that moment, because I'm like, do you really like Sheng Chao? Or are you just using him to try to get Yang Cheng to man up and admit that he likes you? And is that fair to Sheng Chao? Because Sheng Chao seems kind of oblivious to all of this. So it felt like a very manipulative love triangle in this episode, because on the one hand, Yang Cheng likes Zhao Xing, but he's not saying anything because he doesn't have the courage to do so. So it kind of feels like he's leading her on. We know that there's a lot of reasons why he's not admitting it, but it feels like he's leading her on. Then Xiao Qing kind of feels like she's leading Sheng Chao along because she's not giving him an answer. She's waiting. I would be kind of pissed if I was Sheng Chao in that situation too, because if I asked a girl out and then found out she was waiting to see if this other guy said yes, I'd be like, oh, am I not good enough? Am I the sloppy seconds if this guy says no? So I felt bad for him. And then Yang Cheng, if you're shipping Sheng Chao with Yang Cheng, it's like, then you're like, oh, well, if he likes you, then why are you asking her out? So it just, it felt like there was a lot of manipulation in this episode. And I kind of just felt bad for all of these characters in a sense, because I'm like, just be honest with each other, and just, if you like him, you like him. Because, yeah, that whole not yet thing, I don't like that. I don't like the not yet, because that feels like she's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to ask him out. I guess it just depends on what you say. Girl, if you like Yang Cheng, just ask him out and say yes or no. If you don't give me an answer, I'm moving on. And she kind of does say that by the end. She gets there, but it was just kind of like, I would have felt bad for Sheng Chao. She's like, I'm still thinking about it. She's like, we need to go check out this surprise that he's prepared. And then he says, surprise, it's not some massive display of affection, is it? See, again, that makes me so sad, because Yang Cheng is so in his head, thinking in his head that he's just literally thinking that he has it in his mind that Sheng Chao is going to do something to make him feel bad. And that ends up not being the case. And this whole bus drive there, she finally is like, why did you lie to me about, not liking this band? Why did you lie about liking Xian? And he's like, oh, I didn't lie. And she's like, well, but then why did you say that? She was trying to get him to give her some answers. And I would give her a little bit of grace, because maybe she knows how awkward he is. Maybe she knows how little self-esteem he has. But again, we just talked about it. I could see her trying, at least she's trying to foster some communication. At least she's trying to open up a dialogue and say, hey, about that day, you were really weird. Why was that? Now, again, she's kind of circling around the question and not being direct, but there's some parts about that aggravate me, but then again, I get why she's doing this the way she does it, because she probably knows how awkward he is about things. And when he couldn't find the tickets that he had purchased and they weren't with him, what I wanted him to do, I want to go back to this thing and look at, it says miracle shape. That's interesting. But I wanted him to go back when he couldn't find the tickets and just tell her he couldn't find the tickets. I wanted him to just say that you bought the tickets and you left them at home, but just tell her. I think she'll believe you. Also, I'm talking about that in the reaction. The fact that he had zero trust value meant she didn't trust him as well. She was testing the waters to see how he was, which kind of makes sense, because she said she was watching the performances to see which one was the real him, but still means she didn't trust him. It's interesting. But yeah, there were moments where you just want to gently shake these characters and be like, please, Lucky Xian, they're like, please, do the right thing. And then they show up at the apartment, and he's like, what took you guys so long? And she's like, well, is this the surprise we're talking about? And he's like, yes. And he's like, look at this secret layer we have all made. I want to go back and look at some of these posters. Are they important? It seems like there's a man that looks kind of suspicious there. There's something in red. There's some other posters. I want to see what those posters look like up close. They're really hard to tell. But yeah, what's that? I guess it says, does it say ESOL on the little spark there? He's created this whole interesting lab here. I'm like, your dad really got you started off on the right foot, didn't he? Uh-huh. I show my dad the value of the future. Yeah, the Nepo baby gets sponsored in order to make you more professional gear. I've spent the majority of the money on equipment. I can only rent this dingy warehouse with what was left. What's interesting is all the equipment that's supposedly state-of-the-art doesn't stop a bullet going through it, apparently. Apparently the helmet, which again, he's like, we'll see how it goes and improve things once you make it into the commissions ranking. The fact that the helmet did not prevent the bullet makes me kind of wonder again, was Shang anticipating Yang Cheng getting shot? I don't know. I don't know. I have a theory about that, but we're not there yet. Yeah, so they're trying to get the commissions rankings, and Zhao Qing is like, well, but that'd mean you'd have to move into Hero Tower. And they're like, did you plan on doing this? And Yang Cheng's like, I did not think this far. He's like, I did not think this far, thank you very much. Didn't plan on getting in the top 10, so I didn't even think about it. Is his layer that those guys... I have a question. And maybe we'll find this out as the series goes on. So if it's going to be explained later, don't spoil me, please. But my question that I'm thinking in this moment is, if Isol was in the tower as one of the top ranked heroes, then do multiple management companies have access to the tower as well? Because in the first episode or two, the show makes you think that the Treeman Foundation is like this with the commission. They're like the main foundation of heroes, and they own the tower, and they have all these connections, and they've got all this started. But then after you get a few episodes in, you realize, no, the Treeman Foundation is just one organization of many management teams, of many heroes. So they're all vying for this spot in Hero Tower. So do all these management teams have access to Hero Tower as well? That could lead to some shady shit going on. So that's fascinating to me. I guess we'll see. But he's like, even now I feel like I'm dreaming. I don't know when I'll wake up from this dream, but the feeling of being able to dream at all is pretty good. He's like, look, I'm just going to ride this thing out until it goes all AWOL, until it goes crazy. We're just going to see how far this little train takes us. And I'm like, that seems dangerous. So he's waiting outside of the warehouse, drinking the drink when she comes out, and she's like, what are you thinking about? And he's like, I can't help with the research right now, so I came to get some air. And she's like, okay, I need you to promise me something. And this is where things get ominous. She's like, no matter what happens in the future, you'll still face yourself with courage and honesty. That I was like, oh, that's ominous. She's probably going to die. But not yet. No. And she's basically, again, you could argue that if you're frustrated with her because of this, I don't blame you. But she's trying to be like, hey, just be honest going forward and have courage, right? Like, you know, if you could think of any conversations you need to have with, I don't know, anybody that's around that you need to face with courage and honesty, now's the time. So, like, she's all but just saying it to him, right? And I think he knows. So then these guys show up that are with the management, the MG management. Again, this hero commission really likes its gold fittings, gold things, right? And so like the new ESOL character in Crumbles as culprits expose kidnapping mastermind. So the wildly popular ESOL's characters have been exposed and the kidnappers have confessed. So, do I think that the ransom incident was ordered by an individual with the surname of Yang? No, I do not. I do not think Yang Cheng ordered this himself. Of course not. He did not see this coming. Now, again, I think that what this show does, it's interesting. And you can see Hero Tower in the background of that news report, which is fascinating. But I think what's interesting is, I like that they blurred out their eyes when it's like, y'all know who they are. But I think it's interesting because the way that the evidence posits itself, I'm watching another show on my channel where there's a similar situation that's happened like this. The character is being framed, like Yang Cheng is being framed because they happen to work at the same boba shop that the uncle worked at, which is genius callback, genius tie-in. Like, I didn't even think about that being used against him, but it was. But clearly we, the audience, know that picture, he's like, I didn't order them to do anything. I don't even know them. And they're like, well, you interacted with them before. That is a bit shady, right? That is shady. What's interesting is Sheng Chao, again, the what if scenario, how much did he know about the uncle's boba business? And he'd been doing his research to get closer to Yang Cheng. Did he know this was possibly going to happen? Again, that's interesting. And so he's like, do you think, they made an announcement 1 hour ago condemning the fraudulent actions. And then it says MG is going to cooperate with the Hero Commission investigation. So they're like, Isol is innocent, exonerate him, and they're trying to gain support. The petition backing him has already been shared with all the support groups. As long as people keep sharing it, it's sure to have some influence. We can't let this become a one-sided narrative. What's interesting and worth asking in this moment is with Sean Cheng, because there's been all these red flags of him manipulating this situation to get Yang Cheng to become the new Isol. With Sheng Chao, there is a question that, unfortunately, because he's dead, we can't get an answer to. But there is a question of how much of this was him trying to get Yang Cheng to become the new Isol so that he could be his manager and he could have his own management team and then profit from that. And how much of it is him genuinely liking Yang Cheng and wanting the best for him. The crazy thing is, because he's dead, we can't ask him those questions and get those answers. It reminds me a lot of Wreck and Nice, of how much of it, we know the answer from that because we saw the ripping open the vest and all of the other things and the expressions on Wreck's face and everything were answering the questions for us, but it's a very similar type of question, right? How much is he doing this for Yang Cheng and how much is he doing it for himself? I do like whenever we do, it's like either we do flashbacks or we do action scenes that we go into the 2D animation. And look, to be fair, like I felt a little bit like, I was like, oh, don't get greedy, Yang Cheng, when he started to get the trust value and started to kind of like self-centered about it. But then you get to this scene and you get why he's like that, because to grow up without that trust value, to be made fun of it, to be bullied for it, and then when you see this angle of it, where they're like, oh, I turned your trust value 0, and they say, we have trust value requirements for our interns. Because it's like, okay, you were traumatized as a kid because you didn't have your trust value. Well, you know what? That sucks and that's awful, but you're going to grow up, you're going to get out of it. Life's going to get better. Oh, you're in high school and got bullied for your trust value. Well, it's okay, because once you get out of high school, you'll be able to go into the real world and that won't matter. But then in this world, you get into the real world, you get past all those obstacles, and whereas in a normal circumstance, it's like you can carve your own path, you can make your own claims, blah, blah, blah. You can't do that because it followed you. And now you're not getting hired because of something you were bullied for and traumatized for when you were younger. And the thing is, I'm sure there are lots of people who would argue that they had the exact same thing happen to them in this world. And it's kind of relating to that. At least in this world, because we don't have those trust values that are like Truck said in the intro, factual conclusions of your value. Because we don't have those in the real world, yeah, there are people that still encounter this same discrimination and this same prejudice, and it follows them, whether it's your economic background, whether it's who you know if you're in a small town, whether it's a family record, whether it's something like that. Like, yeah, there are those instances where that sort of thing follows you and you have to deal with the same stuff that Yang Cheng has. The difference is it's not a universal thing. In this world, it's a universal thing. That trust value is tied to everyone and not just a select group of people. So that's crazy. Yep. And I felt for him. Like, again, this series, Howlin does a good job of just making everybody look all traumatized. And then the idea of like him freaking out because he doesn't want his trust value to go back down to 0, and there being that like that where it goes to that 1. So then he gets called into questioning. Now, Yang Cheng, she's supporting him. And in that moment is like, I'm going to make sure you're going to be okay. And I kind of loved that her and Sheng Chao were working together to help save him. Again, it's a pretty effective love triangle if we're really looking at it, because her and Sheng Chao were like, we're going to save him and we're going to work together to do it. And high five, we made it happen. Like, you kind of want to support them in that moment. So anyway, they're like, if you just, Mr. Isol sent me on his behalf. He's willing to give you a chance to redeem yourself if you just announce that you're giving up the identity of Isol, you apologize, and you move on. So they were trying to basically strong-arm him into a settlement where he would leave the situation alone. Now, the question is, did Isol actually sign off on this, or did they just go on his behalf and use his name and say that he did? I would like to say the latter, because this is a really corrupt, sleazy thing to do. And from what we've seen of the OG Isol, I can't picture him signing off on that. But we don't know. Again, we don't know. I just didn't expect to see when she's like, you haven't done anything fraudulent. And they're like, trust value, that's rich. How could someone with a trust value of 0 gain that much trust in so little time? It's almost like they were suggesting that he, like, you know, there's been some influencers on YouTube that have been accused of buying views, which I guess you can do, and buying bots to, like, be followers and things like that. There's been a couple influencers on YouTube I watched videos about that they've shown that. So it almost feels like they're trying to suggest that he did that himself. And Yang Cheng's just like, I don't know what to do in this situation. And that's when Yang Cheng is like, look, she shows that she believes in him. The person who treated my brother with love, who showed the justice and bravery of a hero, wasn't Isol, it was Yang Cheng. Which I love. And he's like, well, I don't have time for your sophistry. I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, if you don't agree to this, we're going to have you go to prison. And that's when Sheng Chao's like, objection! Like, again, that's what threw this whole thing off, is that there's been all of this suspicion around Sheng Chao, and he might have been manipulating the situation so he could profit off of Yang Cheng. But then at the end of the day, he does save him. Now, was he saving him to save his own skin? I don't know. But I did not expect to see Enlighter show up in this. And what's crazy is that Enlighter, because this is 3 years ago, this is before he becomes a villain. And he's like, how many people are you going to bring in? He's like, Mr. Shand, I've been sent to investigate the truth of the matter. It feels so weird to see him so in his element and so on his game and so proud. It's crazy. Because again, this is before Nice came around and he was suspicious of Nice. And the fact that Mr. Shan, or Mr. Shang rather, I feel like I've been missing something this whole time and it just hit me. Is Sheng Chao is here. I forget that they do last names first and then there's a surname first and the first name. Is that his son? Oh! I feel like the ditziest person in the room right now. Man, I'm sorry that has escaped me, because he had with the commission and had in... Oh! See, sometimes... The reason why I don't want people to spoil me is because sometimes Romania is going to it's going to escape me for a couple episodes, and then it's going to drop like a damn bomb onto the situation, and I'm going to be like, oh, wow, okay. Wow, okay, so that just made this 1,000 times more complicated, because Mr. Shang, the man who is the president of the commission, his son is Sheng Chao. Which explains why he had all the money to make the warehouse. And explains why he wants to be like his dad, and if the hero says, to manipulate Yang Cheng to be... Okay, so then that explains why he had access to Enlighter, because Enlighter works for the commission. He's a hero. He's trying to get in good graces and do all this. So, of course. Oh, my God. But then the subtitles made it Mr. Shand. So because, okay, now I know why the mods approved Linus's comment, because Linus Peterson, who talked to the intro, had made a comment being like, the mods didn't want me to say this, but now they've approved it, and I want to let you know that it's a typo in the subs. Instead of Mr. Shand, it should be Mr. Cheng, because it's his son. So that's going to be interesting. They shot the Hero Commission's son in the face. And that's, I'm assuming that Mr. Cheng is not with the MG management. I'd imagine that that's going to go over real bad. If the president of the Hero Commission finds out that one of the organizations killed his son, I don't foresee that going well for them or for Isol, which could impact Isol and his entire existence, because he's the president of the commission. Oh, buddy. Okay. He asked me to investigate the truth behind the incident. And he's like, you're the eye of the truth. And he's like, bingo. Again, he feels like it's so sad. It's so sad because he's so in his element. He's so excited and happy to reveal the truth. And then when we see him, when Lin Ling encounters him, he's just like a shell of, again, you either, die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. That's crazy. The source of the phone call wasn't traceable, but it was encrypted. And he's like, I can't imagine an ordinary university student having the abilities to do that. So, especially Mr. Yang here, whose family is struggling financially and who doesn't have any IT knowledge, the accusation is flawed and is unsubstantiated slander. Whoever did this phone call, he's like, whoever did the call here is the real fraud. Now, here's the thing. Again, I honestly, looking at his face here, did Isol's company do the whole kidnapping situation? I don't know. He doesn't look nervous there, and he doesn't look panicked. Instead, he just looks pissed. He's just like, he just looks like he's mad, like, but we have this kid and no, he's, like, taking our identity of Isol, so why is all this stuff happening? That's not the face of a man that's, like, guilty and nervous. It's the face of a man that's just mad that this scenario isn't going his way anymore and they've reached a stalemate. Because here's the thing, too. Enlighter did not reveal that it was Isol's company that made the phone call. He didn't trace the phone call. He just said it was where a university student couldn't have done it by himself and didn't have the know-how to do it. But he didn't reveal who was the actual guilty party at fault. So again, if we're talking about red flags, then that still could be considered one in the long run, right? Maybe. So yeah. And then Yang Cheng is just happy that he's like, okay, I'm glad I'm maybe getting out of this and not going to prison. So then they bust out and he's like, you handled that pressure really good. And he's like, well, so you went and got the Enlighter. That's amazing. He's like, thanks to my dad and his connections. Oh my God, he's the commissioner's son. The commission president's son. Oh my God. Oh my God. And that would make sense, because if your dad is president of the commission and you want to start your own hero management organization, that all adds up. And your dad helped you make the connections to get there. The thing is, I can't, even now at the end of everything, he's like welcoming the new Isol. Wow, he does kind of look like the old man. Yeah, he does kind of look like him. That's crazy. He also kind of looks like Nice, which is super creepy. Very creepy indeed. So, And Yang Cheng doesn't quite look like Lin Ling, so let's not compare them. But it's weird seeing the Firm Man statue. That's crazy. That's weird. I can't decide, like, as they come out and he looks so happy there, I can't decide, even now, if Sheng Chao was not a good person, or if he was just a good person that fell into this like suspicion. I can't decide. I really can't decide, because he seems like such a genuinely nice person, but then all of the stuff surrounding him is so shady. And maybe it was the dad orchestrating it all. Maybe Sheng Chao really was innocent, and the dad orchestrated this all to benefit his son, and Sheng Chao was just this unassuming Nepo baby. It's like, you don't know for sure. And he's dead now, so we can't tell. Also, we have the Easel there. I want to see if there's anybody in the audience that we recognized. Because, yeah, they all just look like generic people there. But, yeah. And you could tell, like, in this moment, there's Pomelo, yeah. Cheering him on. And I like that he wipes his tears. Like, this is all that Yang Cheng has ever wanted, is just to have validation and to have people trust in him and care for him. Like, that's all he's wanted. And he finally is getting that, and it's so crazy. Yep. And there's, like, all the hands holding up the heroes. If that's not symbolic, oh my god. So yeah, the new Easel's proven not guilty, and supporters gather below Hero Tower to express solidarity. A large number of Easel supporters have come to offer support in front of Hero Tower. Sources say the new Easel has been cleared of all accusations. I thought this conversation was interesting, where he says, back in my day, I watched Easel go through fight after fight to become a hero. Which, talking about, like, differences in generations, like the Easel from before when the Hero Commission was starting out had to literally fight villains to establish himself. I think that there's a generational thing that's kind of interesting to note there, where you had one generation that became powerful through violence, and then this generation has become powerful through trust and compassion and image. It's like the way the image is presented are two different things. And it's kind of indicative of the differences in generations now, because it's like, how were people successful and became successful in, like, a millennial or Gen Z's generation versus how do we measure success and achievement through, like, Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They are different because the technology has changed, because the world has changed, because societal viewpoints have changed. So it is a kind of, it's a relevant conversation to have in all this. And the uncle kind of phrases it the best, where he says, you know, he's like, this clueless brat is nothing. And he goes, times have changed. We've got to get used to the new rules of the game. And that's the thing, like, Yang Cheng is a little bit clueless as to how the system works, but I feel like every generation has a moment where they kind of, you know, get a little out of touch and forget their roots a little bit, because I'm sure Easel 34 years ago was just as clueless starting out, but that's not what the public perceived. I'm sure he was just as clueless starting out, just a precocious hero, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but I'm sure that the public didn't think that. And so it's interesting to see, you know, two people that probably started out from similar angles but are viewed differently depending on who they are. The rain should have been a sign. The rain should have been a sign that things were going down. Should have been a sign. As they got under the rain, and we see, like, what is it, Mindstorm Coffee? Yeah, he's like, why did Shang tell us to rush to our base? Okay, this again, it feels like a setup. Feels like a setup. Why did he tell him to rush to the base? Why? We don't know. Why did he tell him to do that? That seems suspicious. And then so we see the suits lighting up. Now, again, it's so crazy because it's like that face, it feels like he's innocent. It feels like there's nothing wrong. But it's like, I don't know. There's a red shirt on that couch. I'm like, is it a red herring? Is it I don't know. Is it all just like a red herring and we're supposed to think that he's a villain, but he's not? It's just like a series of coincidences. This series. Because, yeah, he has the helmet and he's looking at it and it's like, oh, look at this. And that's when she's like, it's raining so hard all of a sudden. And then I'm glad that he apologizes, saying, I didn't mean to lie to you. And she's like, that's why I want you to be brave and face yourself honestly. I don't know what that sign behind her is supposed to say. But she's like, if you can do that. I like there's the walk sign in the background too, saying that we're good to go. If you can do that, I'll support you unconditionally. But if you can't, I won't stop and wait for you either. So she basically inadvertently just comes out and says, she's like, look, if you're honest with me and you tell me you like me or you tell me you don't like me, I will support you either way. So she's like, I'm willing to date you if you want, but I'm also willing that if you don't want to date me to accept that. I'm good either way. She's like, but if you won't speak, then I'm not waiting around. I'm going to move forward. And I appreciate her saying that. Just like she has every right to say that. And you got to buck up, sir, and choose what you want to do. Yeah, so we have like, what's it say? Brainstorm coffee. Okay. And then there's this on sale, that energy drink, the Hero X energy drink. Oh, man. And this iced something. But yeah, the walking sign's going, and then this motorcycle goes by. The moment you saw like the singular motorcycle in the shot, I was like, look, I don't trust this series at all. I don't trust Link Click. I don't trust this series. This director, this creator, every little tiny thing that seems just a wee bit off, don't trust it. It's off. Something bad's gonna happen. Don't trust this man. Creating this series. And she's like, should we run? And so while they're running there, this person shows up at the warehouse. But who is this? Now, why did Cheng put on the helmet? Why did he put on the eSoul helmet? Why didn't he take the eSoul helmet off? These are all very valid questions. There is a part of me that wonders, did Cheng want to be eSoul himself? We don't know. We don't really have any evidence of that. It's like, why would he try to promote Yang Cheng as eSoul if he wanted that? But then, here's the thing. There is a meta aspect of this where corporate entities and the people within them, there is a part of you that could feel in this series, and it kind of relates to real life a little bit, where they're not talented in certain aspects to do the job themselves, or they don't have the circumstances that allow for it, or the capabilities, or the know-how, or the ingenuity, or the attitude, or whatever. There's a number of factors that can be involved. They can't be the thing, but they're going to vicariously be the thing through someone else. So Miss J can't be the perfect superhero, but she's going to manage the perfect superhero. The chairman, he's president of a commission of heroes. He's not a hero himself, but he's going to manage them. And I feel like Shang Chao might have fallen into the same thing. Because he's the commission president's son, because he's all these other things, he can't become eSoul himself. But by managing Yang Cheng, that inadvertently makes him, in his mind, a version or a part of that eSoul. So yeah, because he puts the helmet on as they're running towards the warehouse. Now, who is this person that shoots him? That's the mystery. Is this eSoul himself? That's the question. Can we go back and do a booty comparison? Can we do a booty comparison on that? Is this eSoul's body? I don't know. The back of his head looks shaved, so there's that. But he's wearing a helmet, I think. And then Yang Cheng looks. Okay, there is a man with a shaved head there. Is that the guy that had the... Oh, is it the guy with the ponytail that was hired to kidnap Pomelo? And now he's going to shoot him? Is that him? Huh. Maybe that's him. The kid that... Yeah, okay, so he's got the ponytail. I bet it's the guy that kidnapped Pomelo. Okay. Why is he shooting? Also, the guy that kidnapped Pomelo, though, the thing is, when he steps out in there... Okay, now, to the advantage of all this, you would think the guy who would kidnap Pomelo, he has seen Yang Cheng face to face. He knows what his face looks like. He knows what he looks like. If he had saw Jia Qing and him running towards him, he probably wouldn't have shot Shang Chao because he would have been like, oh, you're Yang Cheng. I know what you look like. But because this clearly shows the incompetence of that person, because it shows the incompetence of that guy, because if he had, asked him to take off the mask, he would have known it wasn't Yang Cheng and he probably wouldn't have shot him. But we established earlier that he's very nervous and he also is very and he doesn't think through decisions. So he just raises the gun as he's walking, and as he starts to go faster, he raises the gun up. And Shang Chao probably did not see this coming. And then he tries to get to him and it's too late. Yep. Nope. And then he shot him through the head, man. And then rode off. Also, poor Yang Cheng, because his parents were both killed right in front of him, and now his best friend / rival is killed in front of him too. I say best friend, they weren't really best friends, but they were like, his benefactor is killed right in front of him as well. That's messed up. But yeah, he shot him, he shot Cheng, and then yep, he did. I can't believe they showed us his face after getting shot. And like, poor her, poor Jia Ching, like poor both of them, poor all three of them. That's crazy. That's crazy. So somebody was hired to shoot. Whoever hired those guys to kidnap Pomelo hired them to shoot new Isol in the face. The irony of it all, the ultimate irony of it all, would have been if it was Shang Chao that orchestrated everything. That would have been, but here's my thing. So there's three possibilities here. Either it's the ultimate irony of all ironies, and Shang Chao hired this guy to come and shoot Yang Cheng for reasons we don't know, like he wanted to take over Isol or he wanted to orchestrate it. But I don't think that this is the case. I don't think it's the case at all, because why would he do that? He's trying to benefit off of Yang Cheng, and he's trying to benefit off him being a hero. So I don't think that scenario, no, I don't believe that at all. But I do think that option 2 is that Isol's company that he works with, the MG management, they're the ones that hired the guys to kidnap Pomelo, and now they're hiring him to go back to the lair to finish the job and kill Yang Cheng and just settle this since they didn't get their way in the building. That's probably the more likely scenario. The third option is that it's another party that is behind the scenes doing it, that is not, like, the other option is that Isol's party is actually innocent and they're fine. And it's another party doing it. But I really think that it's, at this point with what just happened with Shang Chao, I think that Isol's company, the guy in the pink, probably hired the two guys to kidnap Pomelo. And then when he didn't get his way with Yang Cheng and them in the press room, in the boardroom, they sent him to go kill Yang Cheng, and inadvertently, unfortunately for Isol's company, they shot the commission president's son in the face instead. And we established the guy with the ponytail was not competent to begin with, so it makes sense why that happened. Because anybody else would have been like, take off the mask, I want to make sure I'm shooting the right person. But nope. So, I've talked for an hour and a half about this episode. Oh my god. Crazy talk. Okay. You know how that goes. Anyway, I'm super excited for next week, because it's like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I feel like Yang Cheng will be galvanized by all of this. And, well, like, you need to speak up now, because now your potential girlfriend doesn't have another option. That worked out for you. Oddly enough. In the back of my mind, though, I'm still wondering, in the back of my mind, I'm like, why did this man, of all people, shoot Moon? What made him get to that point 3 years after this incident? Because him, of all people, with what's happened with his family and now his friend or benefactor, you would think, like, why would you shoot a girl in the face? Because after you've gone through all that. I don't know, but we're going to find out next week. So, anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, we're going to be having a lot of fun next week as I look at episode 7 of To Be Hero X. And I'll see you then. Bye.